These four cars from the 90s flopped, despite being amazing. So what was the reason for their demise? This is the Cadillac Allante, a car that was basically built to take down Mercedes. In the early 90s, Cadillac was rapidly losing their customers to Mercedes and BMW. Truth be told, Cadillac had basically become synonymous with your grandfather's retirement gift. So Cadillac made the boldest, most expensive bet in American automotive history. They decided to build a world-class luxury convertible that could go head-to-head with the Mercedes SL. The result was the Allante, and it represented everything American luxury could be. But folks, this wasn't just another rebadged GM product. Cadillac went completely insane. The body was hand-built Pininfarina, the same Italian design house that styled Ferraris. But that wasn't all. It had a completely new Northstar V8, which was Cadillac's first all-new engine in decades, and boy was it madness. 290 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 6.4 seconds, and technology that could genuinely compete with Europe's elite. This wasn't just fast for a Cadillac, it was fast, period. So how much did it cost? Well, at $60,000. The Allante was expensive, no doubt. But here's the important thing. A Mercedes SL cost $30,000 more and wasn't nearly as exclusive. The Allante offered more performance than the Mercedes and also better value than any European competitor. So honestly, it was a bargain compared to what Europe was charging for similar performance and luxury. So then, why did it fail? Well, the Allante's failure had nothing to do with the car itself and everything to do with badge prejudice. In 1993, American luxury buyers still believed European cars were automatically superior, so paying $60K for a Cadillac felt so wrong even when it was objectively better. Not only that, but Cadillac's reputation was damaged at this point. Buyers just couldn't believe Cadillac was capable of building a world-class car. Not only that, but Cadillac never properly explained what they'd built. Most people had no idea the bodies were Italian-made. So for that reason, we're going to give performance a 9 and the value a 7.5. But the sales has to get a 2.5. Up next, we have the Honda Civic del Sol. Guys, this was a brilliant convertible that everyone just misunderstood. Basically, Honda's CRX was a darling, but it was getting long in the tooth. So their solution was to build something revolutionary, America's first affordable target top convertible, and the result was the Del Sol, and it was brilliant. This wasn't a traditional soft-top convertible. It was something completely new, a removable aluminum hardtop, power rear window, and twice the luggage space of a Miata. No leaks, no rattles, because it wasn't fabric flapping in the wind. Honda had solved every problem that made convertibles impractical, but the problem was nobody noticed because they were too busy complaining it wasn't a CRX. But here's what these guys missed. The Del Sol was actually faster, 0 to 60 in 8 seconds, which was quicker than the last CRX. It also had more power thanks to their 125 horsepower VTEC engine. Yes, it was 300 pounds heavier, but Honda's engineers had more than compensated with additional power and better aerodynamics. But folks, there's more. The Del Sol even rode better than the CRX. While still handling competently, you could drive it every day without your spine filing a complaint. And unlike traditional convertibles, you could remove the top in 30 seconds and store it properly. So how much did it cost? Well, at $13,700 base, you got sophisticated engineering, VTEC power, and convertible versatility for thousands less than any European alternative. Not just that, but serious car guys didn't take convertibles seriously. They were seen as chick cars or fashion accessories. Honda marketed it as a lifestyle car rather than a performance machine, which turned off enthusiasts. Performance deserves an 8 because of its removable hardtop system. For value, it seems fair to give it an 8 too, but sales has to get a 4 because of the CRX bias. Next is the Buick Roadmaster. This was actually the perfect road trip machine, but built in the wrong decade. Basically, in the 90s, everyone was obsessing over Japanese efficiency and European sophistication. Meanwhile, Buick quietly built something authentically American. It was a 2-ton luxury cruiser with a 5.7-liter V8 with rear-wheel drive. And unsurprisingly, the automotive press yawned, and gas-conscious buyers fled to Camrys. But folks, make no mistake, this thing was built like a tank but handled like a mid-sized car, and the numbers told a story that nobody wanted to hear. 0 to 60 in 9.3 seconds, which was respectable for any car in 1992. This wasn't just big and comfortable, it was genuinely quick and surprisingly capable. You could haul 6 adults in comfort while embarrassing smaller sporty cars at stoplights. This 5.7-liter V8 made 180 horsepower and was the largest engine GM put in a passenger car. But you want to know the real genius of this car? The Roadmaster excelled at things we've lost nowadays. Real space, not fake space, but actual room where adults could sit in every seat without their knees in their chests. Not just that, but the trunk could swallow a week's worth of vacation luggage without Tetris-level packing skills. And at $20,000 base, this was one of the best values in American automotive history. You were getting flagship luxury at mid-level pricing, with engineering that was bulletproof reliable. Honestly, the Roadmaster died because America forgot what it actually wanted. Buick was seen as old people's cars, even though the Roadmaster was genuinely superior to most alternatives. Not just that, Americans convinced themselves they wanted smaller cars right up until they started buying SUVs. Performance deserves a 9. Buick absolutely nailed it. And value should get a 10. This was one of the best automotive bargains of the 90s. But sales? Gotta be a 2. Complete disaster. Moving on to the 1994 GMC Yukon, which was a vehicle that got buried by time. Back in the early 90s, trucks were still trucks, so GMC tried something bold. Something that, at the time, just didn't catch on, but should have. GMC built a working man's SUV, a 6.5-liter turbo diesel V8 in a Yukon. Not just any Yukon. A big, bold, full-size 4x4 designed to conquer snow, dirt, and everything in between. It could do 180 horsepower and had better fuel economy than most minivans of the day. This thing was way ahead of its time. It was built like a tank, but drove with car-like comfort. Folks, just look at how plush the interior is, especially for the era. It towed like a beast and sipped fuel compared to gas V8s. Most people didn't know what they had in front of them, but the guys who bought these knew. The ranchers, the builders, the winter warriors, they knew. So why didn't it catch on? Well, diesel was misunderstood. The public still equated diesel with smoke, smell, and semi-trucks, and GMC, oddly enough, didn't even advertise the diesel very loudly. Basically, SUV buyers were driving to soccer practice. They wanted leather and cup holders, not torque curves. For performance, it's got to be an 8. It wasn't that fast. But value for money gets a 9 because smaller SUVs cost $10,000 more. Sales has to get a 4. It didn't flop because it was bad. It flopped because it was misunderstood. Up next, we have the Chevy Lumina Z34. Folks, this car was the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing. Now, you probably know this. The regular Lumina was about as exciting as watching paint dry. But somebody in GM's engineering department had a wild idea. What if we took this practical family coupe and turned it into a legitimate performance machine? But they didn't just bolt on some plastic cladding and call it a day. They built a brand new engine, a high-tech 3.4-liter V6 with dual overhead cams. It could do 200 horsepower, which was 60 more than the standard engine, and it was backed up with a 5-speed manual built specifically for this car. And the numbers? Well, they tell the story. 0 to 60 in 8.1 seconds, which was faster than most sports cars of the era. But it wasn't just quick in a straight line. The Z34 had sport-tuned suspension and 4-wheel disc brakes. It could actually handle the curves, not just the drag strip. But here's what made the Z34 brilliant. You had real performance without the insurance penalties of a Camaro or Corvette. You had adult practicality thanks to its 4-real seats and a huge trunk. Not only that, but it was at reasonable price at under $17,000. It cost thousands less than comparable performance from Ford or import brands. And to top it off, this was built to GM's family car durability standards. So why did it flop? Well, to start with, the upgrade was just too subtle. Most people couldn't tell it apart from a regular Lumina. Not only that, but badge bias was real back then. Performance car buyers wanted Camaros and Corvettes, cars that looked fast. The Z34 looked like what their dad drove to work. Overall, GM never properly promoted what they built. Most people had no idea this car existed. For performance, we're going to give it a 7.5, and for value, we feel like it deserves an 8.5, and for sales, well, a 2 out of 10 is fair in our eyes. Next is the Dodge Spirit RT. And folks, I'm being honest, this was a family sedan that embarrassed Mustangs. Someone at Chrysler looked at the humble Spirit and asked a brilliant question. What if we stuffed a turbo monster under this mild-mannered hood? The result was automotive insanity disguised as sensibility. They took Chrysler's 2.2-liter four-cylinder and went absolutely wild. Turbocharger with intercooler, dual overhead cams, 16 valves, 224 horsepower. This wasn't just an engine upgrade. This was a declaration of war against every sports car on the road. Guys, the numbers were absolutely shocking for 1991, 0 to 60 in 6.2 seconds, faster than most Corvettes and in genuine supercar territory, and it got it done while looking like your accountant's car. But that wasn't all. You could fit 4 adults in comfort, haul a week's worth of groceries, and have a comfortable ride. But here's what was so shocking. At $17,000, it costs thousands less than comparable performance cars. You got Mustang GT performance for tourist money. And you know what's funny? Your insurance company saw Dodge Spirit and charged economy car rates, not sports car premiums. So why did it fail? Well, the Spirit RT was a victim of American car culture. It had the wrong body style at a time where performance meant 2 doors and a V8. Not only that, but Dodge meant trucks and minivans to most people. Performance car buyers wanted Mustangs, Camaros, and Corvettes. But to me, the Spirit RT wasn't a failure. It was prophetic. This car predicted the entire modern performance sedan movement by 15 years. The BMW M3. Same concept, German execution. So to me, performance has to get a 9.5 out of 10. Value is also high at a 9. But sales, unfortunately, gets a 3. Next, we have the Saturn SC, which was basically America's fight back against Japan. America at the time were known for their failure to build small cars that didn't fall apart after 50,000 miles. But then the Saturn SC came along. It was living proof that American engineers could build a small car that was genuinely better than the imports. Now, Saturn was a completely new company within GM, built from the ground up. And for a brief shining moment, they actually pulled it off. What made the SC special wasn't flashy horsepower numbers. It was doing everything right. Space frame construction with plastic body panels that would never rust. It had independent rear suspension, when most small cars still used cheap beam axles. Not just that, but the build quality actually rivaled Honda and Toyota. Fuel economy didn't sacrifice performance either. This wasn't just competitive with imports. In many ways, it was superior. And you know what's crazy? The SC actually launched at exactly the right moment. Gas prices were climbing, so efficiency mattered again. But at the time, import quality was the gold standard, as young buyers didn't care about V8s. Small cars were now respectable, and Saturn had built the perfect car. But here's the tragic part. Corporate sabotage was the reason for its demise. GM's other divisions saw Saturn as a threat to their own small car sales. So instead of expanding Saturn's success, they starved it of resources, no evolution whatsoever. Saturn started as a revolutionary company, but slowly got absorbed back into the GM bureaucracy that had created the problem in the first place. For performance, we think a 7 is fair. Value, though, gets a 9. It actually undercut most imports. Sales were initially good, so we'll give that a 4.